Hi everybody, I'm Bronwyn, and we're going to talk a little bit about the exhibit that we put together in the King Gallery called 25 Fables, Aesop's Animals Illustrated. We made an exhibit and a book, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each one. The exhibit has 25 fables, as the title says, and what we did was we invited 25 local artists, each to illustrate an Aesop's fable. So there are hundreds of fables. I read over 600 fables, and then between curatorial and education and interns, we whittled it down to 25, and some of the things we were really thinking about were thinking about ones that had wild animals in them. We weeded through and took out all of the ones with people in them and domestic animals and that sort of thing. And then the other thing we really thought about was choosing fables that had to do with a trait of an animal and or some kind of interaction between the animals that was interesting. So most of the fables are anthropomorphic. They are about human relations. So it's a really interesting way to think about animals. So Aesop was supposedly a Greek slave around 600 BC who was freed and then started collecting fables, and who really knows, but because that was a really long time ago. But the fables are have a lot of similarities with stories cross-culturally all over the world. So that's another thing that's really interesting, and it's been passed down verbally and written, and a lot of them are things that we sort of use still today, in our culture to talk about things or to, use shorthand refer to different things, like the rabbit, the tortoise and the hare. Slow and steady wins the race is something that we use, in our culture. So they resonate today. So I'm gonna maybe walk a little bit. The way that we've set up this exhibit is we have set the exhibit up just like the book, but on the wall. So as we go down, we will see the introduction that's in the book, the cover of the book is here, and then we have the table of contents. So as we go down the King and then come back, it's set up in the order that the book is published. So it's a really neat way to be able to have the original artwork here and in the book form, which is in the shop. So what we did was we gave, I'll go to the first one so we can talk about it. We gave each artist some instructions. We gave them each a 20 by 30 piece of illustration board, and each artist got a fable, and then I asked them to illustrate it in black and white and tones of gray. So there is something that's tying all of these many different styles together, and it has a cohesiveness in its color choice and size of piece, but then each artist was picked based on their diverse, that they would contribute this very diverse style to these 25 fables. The other thing that is really interesting about this exhibit is it is all local or regional artists, and a lot of these people have been doing these invitational community exhibits with me for a long time. So some of the people have lived here for 40 years, and some of them have lived here for a couple of years. And each of these people is, involved in our community in a bunch of different ways, and they are also really amazing artists. So it's a really fun way to, get a little peek into our community. So we've got, let's see, some professional illustrators and some people that are, working and making work, but also doing a bunch of other things like ski patrol and gardeners and teachers and let's see what else. Yeah, all kinds of different things and fun ways of thinking about our community. Rachel Kunkel-Hartz had the town mouse and the country mouse, where the country mouse says to the town mouse, "Come and visit me, it's so great in the town, we've got so much stuff, and there's this giant pantry in this house that I live in, and you can eat stuff all the time." But every time they try to go do something, either an animal, like a dog comes, or a cat, or a giant foot comes, and the country mouse says, "I'd rather have less food and live in the country where there are not so many dangers." So in hers it's really great. She gets really detailed, and with a picture of the giant foot coming to stomp on the mice in the city, and then this really beautiful country home where they have some wheat and some radishes and carrots that they can eat. Jocelyn Slack is a longtime Valley resident and well-known illustrator, and she picked the fox and the crow because she really was interested in depicting a fox. And she said the whole image went together pretty well, except she spent the most time on the expression of the fox, which when you get up a little closer you could see he's really being cunning. And this one has very tiny details of like fish and things in the fox's tail, which is fun to look at when you get up close. Erin Ashley Smith illustrated also another classic, the Hare and the Tortoise, but what she chose to do was use a Northwest style to do that. It's really fun to be able to look at this one and try to find the tortoise and find the rabbit in their race. And she used Sharpies for this one. So there's black and then the white of the board and a silver Sharpie. So that's fun to look at. Emily Baesflog is a local artist, and she picked the Peacock and the Crane and used charcoal pastel to do her piece. It has a really great soft feeling. Haley Badenhop, this story, The Dog and the Wolf, is about a wild animal versus a tame animal, and so what she decided to do was represent wild and tame in two very different ways. The tame one has collar on and is chained up, and is in more of a realistic style, and the wild one she does in more of a stylistic kind of illustration, sort of tattoo kind of thing, and it's really wild, so showing the difference between the wolf and the dog. So this one is Greta Gratzinger, a local artist who has painted murals all over the valley, and this is the Mice in Council, or Who Will Bell the Cat, and what she's done here is the mice are all around the edge, you know, thinking about how they are going to put this bell on the cat, and the cat is this crazy mythical creature in the middle. Henry Williams chose the serpent and the eagle, and he used colored pencil and Sharpie, but what's so fun about this is the way, you know, even just in using black and white, there are a bunch of different tones going on here. So the background is kind of a warmer gray, and then the colored pencil he used for the snake is like a white, you know, cooler white gray, and he did this just amazing job of having the snake really come out at you. Jenny Dowd used ink on board, and the crow in the picture is one of the ones that is less anthropomorphic and more actually about a trait of, you know, crows, which are, you know, along with ravens and magpies, are corvids, and they're a super smart animal, and the crow was really thirsty and couldn't get its head down into the pitcher, so it just filled the pitcher up with stones, and then the water rose and it was able to drink. And that actually could be something that a crow would figure out, because they are known to figure out, you know, problem solve even like many steps to be able to get food. So this one actually is more about the actual animal and less about you know, human anthropomorphism, human interactions. The Bat and the Weasels was illustrated by Ben Roth, and this one is really interesting fable in that the bat uses its very strange place in the world to not get eaten by the weasels. So at one point it says, "I am a bird because I can fly, and please don't eat me." And then another time it says, "But I'm a mouse." And so then the weasel says, "Oh, I won't eat you." Mike Pigott, these people are all local, so a painter who lives here. The Bear and the Travelers is a really great story. This is the other one that has human in it, or not God, but human. And the two travelers are on the road, and the bear comes along and scares them, and one traveler just climbs right up a tree and the other one plays dead. And the bear comes over and whispers in his ear, and then the bear leaves. And the scaredy cat friend comes down from the tree and says, "What did the bear whisper in your ear?" And the other one said, "He told me never again to travel with a friend who deserts you at the first sight of danger." So. So this artist, Lisa Walker, used screen printing, but then she also used a Japanese style of embroidery called shashiko to really emphasize some of the pattern on her canvas that she printed on. Just another example of a cool way of approaching the black and white project. Lisa Walker used an owl for her model of this that is one of the educational birds, live birds at the Teton Raptor Center, and it's actually about this big, and its name is Rain, after Burt Raines. Here is one that Shannon Troxler did with the lion and the mouse, and the lion in this story is caught in a big trap, and the mouse frees him. But what she did was she used wire, and then instead of chewing through the trap, the mouse is using wire cutters. Ben Carlson had one that is really interesting, The Wolf and His Shadow, and you can see the wolf down here, which he did in a really neat way. It's got this cool lifeline going through it, but the wolf has human hands and feet. But it's really about how in your imagination you can make something much bigger and scarier than it, you can just go nuts with your imagination, and then maybe you try to overcome that. Stephen Glass used spray paint and silkscreen and paint pen on his. I think there are a couple in the show that have domestic animals. So this one features one of those. So it's the gnat and the bull, and he did a really amazing job of silk screening the Texas Longhorn, the bull, and then the little gnat is there on his horn. And this one is about the gnat coming and resting on the bull and then saying, "If you don't mind, I'd like to leave now." And the bull's like so big compared to the gnat being so small that he says, "I didn't even know you were here in the first place, so leave whenever you want." Erin OConnor had the foxes in the river, and this is one of those fables where the fox is trying to cover up for a mistake. But she did a really beautiful job of showing us the fox is communicating from shore to river, and the expressions in their eyes are really great. One of the other things that's interesting about the fables is there are a lot of fables featuring certain animals. So foxes, lions, and wolves are pretty prominent in the fables. So we spent a lot of time trying to not have too many of each one of those animals. So we were picking, maybe a couple of good lion ones and a few fox ones, so that it wasn't just an entire book about lions and foxes. But they are really interesting in our minds because foxes, they have traits that we are really interested in. So foxes are often thought of as cunning or tricky cross-culturally, and lions are thought of as very fierce or also very royal, regal animals. So we've attributed different kinds of characteristics to animals over time. The Ant and the Dove by Stacey Oldham is ink on board, and she is an illustrator who uses a lot of text in her pieces, and she asked if she could actually put the title of her piece into the illustration, which is a really interesting way to think about that. But the Ant and the Dove is a really nice fable about helping people out. So Olaf's Lynn has the lion and the boar, and this he used a lot of different sources that he found, pictures of lions and boars and vultures that he found, and put this all together to talk about this fable that the lion and the boar were really going to fight over the watering hole, but then they saw the vultures waiting there, and they thought, oh, well, if we kill each other, we'll both get eaten, so let's be friends and share the watering hole, and not die and be eaten by vultures. Damon Chlorine decided to really get into this piece. It's ink on yupo, which is a sort of watercolor substrate, but it's made out of, it's sort of a plastic, so the ink dries on it in a really interesting way. And The Fox and the Grapes is one that I think a lot of us know, where the fox is trying to get the grapes but can't jump high enough, and then says, oh, those grapes must taste bad anyways, I didn't want them. But really it's because he couldn't jump high enough. But I think it's interesting that then he gave us the skeleton of the fox, so maybe the fox could never get enough good food and just turned into a skeleton. And all of the artists approached things in really interesting ways. This artist, Emily Poole, picked this fable specifically because it's titled The Bat, the Bramble, and the Seagull, and she was really interested that a bramble, which is, you know, a plant, is a character in the story. So she thought that was an interesting thing to try to figure out how to represent a plant as a character. So the other really interesting thing about this exhibit is people approached the black and white and gray assignment, part of the assignment, in really different ways. So Sam Dowd is a sculptor, and so he chose to use cut paper and glue it onto the illustration board. We have people that are using pen and ink and acrylic paint and Sharpies, and there's one that has wire in it. And so people got really creative and, you know, used all their different skills and different approaches to solve this problem. Fun. Greg Hoda is a retired high school art teacher here, and he was doing The Wolf and the Crane, which is a really classic story, but he put Mount Moran in the back, which is really nice because it locates us here. Matt Grimes had the stag at the pool, and this is a really great fable where the stag loves his antlers because they're so big and beautiful, and then says, "Oh, my skinny legs, those dumb legs." But then when he gets chased by some hunters, his legs actually are great and fast and gets him away from things, and his antlers get stuck in a bush, and then he gets caught. So he's really sad that he was praising one of his attributes and dissing the other one, but really he should have been like appreciating all of his self. There are two fables that have humans in them. Well, one is a human and one is a god. So this is Tim Tompkinson, and it's Jupiter and the Tortoise, and it's a fable about how the tortoise got its shell. And he did a really interesting thing where Jupiter looks like a marble statue, which is a really neat way to, you know, think about gods. A lot of times we see them as statues in museums and that sort of thing. So giving the tortoise his shell. The Fox and the Stork by Walt Gerald is really cool, crazy detail, kind of reminiscent of tattoo art, but other really detailed pen and ink work. He used some letters in his. The Fox and the Stork is a tale about the fox inviting the stork over to dinner, but serving him soup on a plate, which the stork can't get the soup off the plate because his beak beak is so long. And then the stork says, well, that's kind of mean. So then he invites the fox over and serves the dinner in a really tall vase, which you can see here, which the stork can put his beak down in and get the soup out, but the fox can't. So I'll put do unto others in here. So this is a tale about just being mindful of other people. The book ends with Sharon Thomas's piece that is called The Kingdom of the Lion, and it is where the lion is the ruler, but he is creating peace with all of the animals, and it's a really nice way to end the book.